Washington riots erupted some 9 months after Detroit, starting late the night of April 4th, 1968, the day Martin Luther King was killed in Memphis. In the 3.5 days of rioting, 10 people were killed, 1,100 injured, and property damage was estimated at $13 million. Areas where there used to be stores and homes along Washington's 14th Street corridor stand out like open wounds.
I am sitting here wanting memories to teach me to see the beauty in the world through my own eyes. I am sitting here.
10th Street Village evolved out of the riots and social upheaval of the 1960s. It followed on the heels of the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. In the early 1970s, with the closing of St. Elizabeth's and other hospitals for the mentally ill, the problem of homelessness became severe. Something had to be done.
We really began when every day there were reports. A bitter winter blew in, and people were dying. Bodies were being found at that time in the abandoned houses that were in abundance all over 14th Street, 7th Street, which were then called the riot corridors or the street of the uprising, depending on your prejudice. And we decided we had to respond to this crisis, and we opened the doors of the church to the homeless. And instantly, in 24 hours, the church behind me, Luther Place, was filled to capacity, wall to wall. I see this as a promised land, and maybe not many square feet, but it's all we've got. And perhaps this can be a light to the city, an exemplification of the biblical good to which we are called, to be sensitive to those who have no place, those who are the outcast.
I called her, she talked to me and put my name on the list. And I think I came over there to Luther Place shelter, and she talked to me and told me, you know, how the arrangements was there. And as soon as they got a bed for me, they would call and I could come over. So the next day they had a bed for me, and I was so happy. I got over there and I slept like a log.
Well, you remember the ministries that were started up. First, I think, was Bread for the City.
With Deborah's Place, one of the places.
Deborah's Place, and underneath Deborah's Place, they opened up a thrift shop. Then the other houses evolved. Sarah House, where they helped women who were looking for jobs. What really was evolving was not only finding a place to live, because really one of the principal sources of the problem of the homeless is a place to be, a place to live.
The part that I remember is that we were able to use it as a vehicle for bringing the social action groups of all of the synagogues involved. And it went well beyond the Lutheran family, and it was a good interdenominational thing. Yeah. And we got all sorts of people, and the kids were excited about it because they could see that their work was going to people who actually needed it.
I think we've done a marvelous job from the early days and come through to the place where we can offer this continuum of services that results in healing and wholeness. But and then we find this brick wall, this barrier of lack of housing, which has always been the problem. And I feel that local government and federal government has not in any way kept pace with that enormous need for housing.
I was in N Street for 4 years. I went to apply for housing, and it took 2 years for it to be approved. And I'm getting ready to buy. I finally got the papers, and my landlord wants to sell. So the money that the government is paying for my rent will be going towards my mortgage. N Street has done a lot for me. I mean, I can say they gave me my life back, my soul back, because I was like, I didn't have one.
You could stand on the top of the church and see the buildings burning. You could see the National Guard going up 14th Street. And this tremendous response from the suburbs and all of the religious community, bringing in clothing and food to respond and redistributing it. And that really began to open the congregation's eyes to the possibility. And the congregation decided to do the Christian thing, and that was to tear down all of the townhouses and make the whole thing a parking lot. In the meantime, Pastor John said, let's think this out. those things which can be used for evil can also be used for good. So why don't we try an experiment? Why don't we take one of the townhouses, see if we can operate a ministry there, and if it doesn't work, we can always tear the townhouses down later. And someone asked during the congregational meeting, well, how will people know? How will we advertise that the facility is open? And that turned out not to be a problem, because by the time the doors were opened on Monday, more than 200 people arrived, both men and women. And we learned two things that year. One, we learned that there were far more women on the streets than anyone realized. They were invisible. You could walk by them and you didn't recognize that they were homeless. And there were many women that showed up to sleep in the shelter. And the congregation decided that there were other places for men, but there were no other places for women. And so for the second year, the shelter should be only for women. And that's how we got started on the direction of working principally with women.
When the ladies would come in, she would always say, if anyone haven't told you today that they love you, I do. And she would also hug us and embrace us, you know. And I'm saying to myself, oh, this feels very good, you know. I never had anyone to love me.
N Street Village has taught me so much. It's taught me that I can't get well alone, that I need people, that I must be a part of a family, that I must share my feelings and my thoughts, and that I can get better by caring for others.
Our goal is to go after more affordable housing and transitional housing. People can't focus on some of the other areas in their lives, their mental illness, their drug addictions, whatever it is, they can't focus on that when they're out in the street and homeless and don't have anywhere to live. So we know that affordable housing is a really big piece of what makes our programs work. Advocacy is a big issue, being a voice for people who don't have a voice. We have got to somehow connect with our politicians, our lawmakers, people that are making the laws in this country. We have got to be a voice for the needs of the poor and the needy and the homeless and the mentally ill. So I think that's going to be a huge challenge for us in the next 5 years even, to really be an advocate for the homeless.
Since you've gone and left me, there's been so little beauty, but I know I saw it clearly through your eyes. Now the world outside is such a cold and bitter place. Here inside I have few things that will console. And when I try to hear your voice above the storms of life, then I remember all the things that I was told. I am sitting here wanting memories to teach me to see the beauty in the world through my own eyes. I am sitting here wanting memories.